was, what inspired you to be a composer, and what were the notable influences in your development?
Okay, I cannot tell you how I got dragged into music in the first place. It's happened so gradually. There was no one defining moment. When I entered college, I listed myself as a history major.
Oh.
But I played cello in the orchestra, and I palled around with the music majors, and I got to know the faculty, and I said, well, I'm not going to be a history major after all. I'll start taking music courses. And I was writing little pieces all the time. It just kind of happened to me, rather than there was no point at which I made any kind of decision. And the important was the second half of the question.
Notable influences.
Even on the music, my music itself?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Or on your development, teachers.
It's all. That I look back on it, everything happened so gradually. I studied composition with Carl Rothaus at Queens College. From him, I learned what it is to be a composer, which is probably the most important lesson. At Princeton University, I had studied with Randall Thompson, who was no teacher, but I studied his music, and that opened up to me a whole different world of music, because on the Rothaus it was the Central European thing, and I got to Mr. Thompson, and I saw it, and I heard Copland, and the whole Americana thing opened up for me at Princeton. But so I don't give him credit as a teacher, I'm sorry to say, but his music, especially his Second Symphony, was important to me. And then I studied with Nadia Boulanger for 1 year. I know she's very famous, that's why I went there, but I only spent 1 year there, and in terms of composition, it accomplished very little. But in terms of musicianship, I learned a great deal, which I then brought back to my own teaching. So it had a big influence on me as a teacher. But I consider myself as a composer self-taught.
Oh.
And I suspect that any composer would give you the same answer. Nobody can teach me how to write like me.
Yeah. Nobody
can teach you how to write like you. People can show you all kinds of interesting things which you absorb, or you don't absorb, or you reject, whatever. And as far as influences are concerned, we choose our influences. We all hear pretty much the same range of music. And we say, oh, I like this, I want to write something like that. Oh, I couldn't stand it, I couldn't. And you accept, you reject, you filter out, and you start trying to write like somebody else, and if you have a voice, you move away into your own world, but it takes 10 years, maybe, at least. So that influences, we act sometimes as if influences fall out of the sky and hit us in the head, and there's nothing we can do about them. Just the opposite. We choose our influences.
It's very interesting.
It's an important point for a young composer to remember.
Yeah.
Okay. Defining moments, I don't think, I thought it would be a big thing to go to Paris and study there for a year. And it was a big experience in many, many ways. But as a composer, I just kept on going where I was going, and I came back and kept on going where I was going. I could have gone to Shanghai without it influencing my composition, although in terms of musicianship and getting to know French culture, it was a very meaningful year for me.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Keep going. What was next?
The next question was about one of the pieces that was performed at Christ and St. Stephen's Church. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. Is it Cinque Fantasy?
Oh, you're not Italian, are you?
No. Well, I actually don't speak Italian.
Cinque Fantasia, which means 5 fantasies, as you may have guessed.
Okay.
Did you guess?
Yeah.
1993, I think. I was invited to write a piece for a music festival in Gubbio in Italy, and I had a chance to hear the 2 performers who were going to play their piece, their program, a violin and a cello, and they were awfully good. And I thought to myself, here's a whole world of music, but there's 2 instruments. The range of those 2 is the same as the range of the string quartet. So I said, what shall I write for Italy? First of all, it has to have an Italian name. And then I thought, I'll write something, the most imaginative music I can write. And that's what I did. I didn't follow any, well, this will come up later on. I did some things I hadn't done before. I had a very good time writing, and they played it, and nobody got sick. And then I brought it home again, and I said, you know, these guys are very good. On one rehearsal, they did very well. One rehearsal. I said, are the weaknesses the fact that they only had one rehearsal, or are the weaknesses in the piece itself? So I went over the piece carefully, and I found a few spots here and there. So what we have is the revised version, which is true of about half of my compositions. I'm not a quick composer, and I often need to hear a piece performed in public and get my own audience reaction before I know for sure that this works and that doesn't work. That's the detailed kind of thing, but that's it. So I think Cinque Fantasia is one of my most imaginative pieces. I'm very happy with it, and had a stunning performance, better than the one I had in Gubbio. Needless to say, because they had more than one rehearsal. I think they had two.
There was another question, I think you kind of answered it already. It was about the textures that you used in that piece. It was, where did you get the ideas for the interesting textures that you used?
I made it up. That's all I can tell you. No, I hear violin. There's only two pieces I know for violin and cello. One is by Kodai, which is an interesting piece. That doesn't bowl me over. The other is the Ravel Sonata for violin and cello, which he wrote the year I was born, 1922. And that is a masterpiece. I think maybe his best piece, or one of his best pieces. But what I wrote is entirely different. But I was happy not to have Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, Brahms, and so on looking over my shoulder when I wrote